My wife asked me to let her sleep with other men because she survived cancer, but when I told her no, she started having multiple affairs behind my back. A couple of weeks ago, my wife came to me saying she needed to get something off her chest. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that going through cancer a year ago taught her that life is too short and that she wants to experience things. I knew what she meant. She always wanted to travel, but we never had the money. I took her hand and told her, we can do it. We can travel the world. I'll find a second job and save every dime I make. That will be our travel money. She smiled at me and said, "That's really sweet, honey, but that's not what I meant." Then she said it. She wanted to sleep with other men while still being with me. She told me I was holding her back from experiencing life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I told her no, absolutely not. But after that, things started to change. She would come home late a few nights out of the week, telling me she was just hanging out with her coworkers or staying late to work on a project. I didn't pay much attention to it at first. One night she came home particularly late, dressed in a red dress, makeup done beautifully, almost like Jessica Rabbit. She looked really happy as she walked into the house. I asked her where she had been, and she only answered one of my questions. She said they didn't allow spouses because the food was on the company's dollar. I let it go, and she went upstairs to prepare for bed. In the following days, she started wearing her makeup the same way as that night and began wearing more vibrant, fitted work clothes. She never used to wear makeup unless it was a special occasion, and on the weekends she'd now start putting on makeup and the expensive perfume I got her for one of our anniversaries, but she didn't wear it when we went out together. Our dates became few and far between, not because I wasn't planning them, but because every time I proposed something like a candlelight dinner or reading in a park, she'd say she was busy or tired, but later that day she'd leave the house to go somewhere alone. I didn't want to bring up the changes I saw because I figured this was probably what she meant by feeling alive. She started talking about some guy she met at the grocery store and how great he was at problem solving. The uneasiness settled in when we'd host game nights at our house, and I noticed her getting really excited when talking to my male friends. I didn't want to stop having people over, but I also didn't want to take away any fun experiences from her, considering she almost lost her life. Eventually, I knew I had to talk to her. After work one day, I made her dinner and brought up her recent changes. I told her I noticed she was coming home late often, wearing makeup, dressing better, and talking about more guys in her life. I told her how insecure it made me feel in the relationship. She did not take it well. She said I was being controlling and that she wasn't doing anything to raise suspicion. I said I trusted her, but her actions were just alarming. That night, I sat in our bed feeling guilty about everything. I accused her of cheating on me, and now I felt like an idiot. She was just doing what I told her to do, try new hobbies like makeup, fashion, and being more sociable, and here I was, telling her to stop. Because it made me uncomfortable. I felt terrible. Maybe I was too strict on her, but then I began to think about men, about the feeling of potentially being with someone else. One moment, I felt like she was playing me and using cancer as a cover-up for her true intentions. And the next, I felt guilty for even thinking that. It had been weeks since our last date, and every night Mia would come home, almost at my bedtime. We didn't talk much, other than the occasional "How was your day?" or "Can you pick up milk on your way home?" She started going on weekend trips, and whenever I asked her where she was going, she'd say she was just out with her girlfriends. I'd tell her goodbye and to be safe, but deep down, I knew something was off. One day, she came home from work late again, as usual, and spoke to me first. I hadn't experienced that in a long time, so I was excited to talk to her. She asked me if I had time to talk, and I said of course. She then dropped another bomb on me. She asked if we could open our marriage. She went on to talk about all the benefits we would have, saying we'd both be happier, and that we wouldn't have to worry about being jealous of each other, because we'd established ground rules. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart broke just like it did the first time she asked to cheat on me. I saw the look of desperation on her face, waiting for my answer. I told her I still didn't feel comfortable with an open marriage, and she began to cry. She cried and pleaded, saying that surviving cancer was the biggest eye-opener for her, that it changed her life. She said she craved more excitement out of life now, to make up for the years that were robbed from her due to suffering. I was confused about what prompted her to ask this, but I was sure of one thing: I wanted to make her happy, though it hurt. I agreed to an open marriage. The next few weeks were rough. I dealt with constant paranoia. Every guy she brought up had me thinking he was sleeping with my wife. I stopped hanging out with my friends, not because I didn't want my wife around them anymore, but because I didn't have it in me to play the role of a happy person when I was in a constant state of paranoia and insecurity in my relationship. Every interaction I had with my friends became tarnished because the excitement on Mia's face while talking about them would flash in my mind. After a while, one of my buddies from game night reached out, asking how I was doing. He said he noticed a change in me and wanted to know what happened. I was too embarrassed to tell him that my wife opened our marriage, so I lied and said a relative had died. And that was why I'd been off the past couple of weeks. He gave his condolences and said if I needed anything, to let him know. I truly appreciated that. Chad was one of my best friends in high school. He always kept it real. Mia was coming home even later now, and sometimes she wouldn't come home at all. This was really affecting my mental state. Most nights I didn't get much sleep because I was thinking about her and what she was doing. I tried calling her some nights, but the phone would often ring and ring without an answer. I noticed she started putting her phone on Do Not Disturb. Most nights I was reflecting on my decision to do what made Mia happy and realized that I agreed to these terms at my own demise. I often thought about whether I wanted to keep this up or if this decision would be sustainable for our relationship. And I knew that I couldn't go much further without ending up in an asylum. After about 2 months of having an open marriage, I decided to talk to Mia. She finally came home after being gone for 3 days, and I knew I had to speak to her then. Since I didn't know the next time I'd have an opportunity, I brought up the marriage and how I'd been feeling lately. But it felt like while I was talking, Mia was looking at me, but not really listening to what I was saying. Or maybe she did listen and just didn't care. I told her I couldn't continue this relationship if we remained open. And that's when I saw a spark of sincerity on her face. She apologized and said she hated to see me go through this alone. She agreed that we could close our marriage again, and that phase was behind us. This felt like such a relief to me. We hugged and went upstairs to renew our bond with one another. For a while, everything went back to normal, and Mia and I were happily married. She stopped coming home as late and stayed home every day. She still wore makeup every day, and her sense of style was still great, but that didn't matter to me. I was happy that we were both happy together. Until one night, she joked about an open marriage again. At first, I couldn't tell if she actually desired that, or if she was joking. I played it off as a joke, but it wasn't enough for her, and she said it was. But that it didn't compare to the new adventures she had with other men, while knowing she had a reliable man at home. Again, I felt betrayed hearing this. I felt like she was pretending all along to be satisfied with me, only because she feared losing me. I told her that I could not be in an open marriage, for the sake of my mental health, and left it at that. That night after she went to bed, I did something I'm not too proud of. I saw her phone on the kitchen counter as I came down to get some water, and I went through it while she was sleeping. I had to know for sure if she was being monogamous to only me. After we decided to close our marriage, my hands were shaking, and I could feel the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I was on edge. Unlocking her phone, I navigated to the messages and checked her recent conversations. At the time, they talked about future plans together. And he even sent her money for her hair, nails, and new clothes. That's where she got the new clothes from. As I scrolled further, I realized they had been seeing each other long before she asked for an open marriage. One of the messages she sent him said, "If I beat this, you definitely have to take me to the Maldives. LOL. I couldn't believe it. The sadness quickly turned into rage when I realized who this man was. Chad, my high school best friend. The next morning I woke her up with her phone in my hand. She asked me what I was doing, and I had no words. I just opened up the messages between her and Chad and showed her. She instantly tried to explain that she didn't mean to hurt me, that the affair meant nothing to her. She even tried to say that's why she hadn't left me, because she still loved me and only wanted me as her husband, but I wasn't hearing it. I was enraged. When she saw that I wasn't reacting the way she expected, she began to cry and beg, just like she did when she first asked for an open marriage. She kept saying that the cancer made her want to seek new experiences and that I was the only one she truly loved. But I couldn't continue living with a liar. Both of them betrayed me too badly. No matter what she had been through, I knew I deserved better. I packed my things and left. I didn't give myself a chance to change my mind. On the car ride away, I suddenly felt a bit of relief, knowing that my gut feeling had been right all along. The constant gaslighting and emotional turmoil had weighed me down so much that I didn't realize how much baggage I was carrying until I finally decided to leave. But I refused to be fooled any longer. My wife asked me to let her sleep with other men because she survived cancer. But when I told her no, she started cheating behind my back. And the whole time, it was with my best friend, Chad. The betrayal was too much. I'm done.